Critical Thinking Mastery, Clear Thinking for Better Decisions, written and published by Echo Tales. Introduction. Every decision you make shapes your future. Most people never stop to question how they think. This book begins with a simple truth. Your results are not only shaped by what you know, they are shaped by how you think. Critical Thinking Mastery is designed to help you take control of your thinking, not in theory, but in real life. You are surrounded by opinions, noise, and constant information. Some of it is useful. Much of it is misleading. Without strong thinking skills, it becomes easy to react instead of reason. This book teaches you how to slow down your thoughts, how to ask better questions, how to separate truth from assumption. You will learn how the mind makes decisions. You will discover why intelligent people still make poor choices, and you will learn how to avoid the traps that limit clear judgment. This is not an academic lecture. It is a practical guide. Each chapter builds one skill at a time. The ideas are simple. The impact is powerful. As you listen, you will begin to notice changes. You will catch faulty reasoning faster. You will feel more confident in your decisions. Critical thinking is not about being negative. It is about being precise. It is about seeing clearly when others do not. By the end of this book, you will think with greater clarity. You will decide with greater confidence, and you will respond to life with intention, not impulse. This is your starting point. Let us begin the journey toward sharper thinking. Chapter 1. What critical thinking really is. Most people believe they think clearly. Very few ever test that belief. Critical thinking is not about being smarter than others. It is not about winning arguments or proving someone wrong. It is about understanding how your mind works and learning how to guide it. At its core, critical thinking is the ability to pause. It is the skill of stepping back before reacting. It allows you to examine ideas instead of accepting them automatically. Many people confuse thinking with reacting. A thought appears, an emotion follows, a decision is made. Critical thinking interrupts that pattern. It creates space between what happens and how you respond. Imagine you receive a message that upsets you. Without thinking, you reply quickly. Later, you regret the tone or the words. Critical thinking changes this moment. You notice the emotion. You question the urge to respond. You choose a better action. That pause is the beginning of mastery. Critical thinking is deliberate thinking. It is intentional. It does not rush. This skill helps you ask one powerful question. Is this true? Not everything you hear is accurate. Not everything you think is correct. Critical thinking gives you the tools to check. It helps you separate facts from assumptions. It helps you see when emotions are shaping judgment. It helps you notice when opinions are mistaken for truth. Consider a simple example. A coworker does not reply to your message. Your mind fills the gap. You assume they are ignoring you. You feel annoyed. Critical thinking offers another path. You ask what evidence you have. You consider other explanations. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they did not see the message. Your emotion changes because your thinking changed. This is not weakness. This is clarity. Critical thinking does not remove emotion. It places emotion in its proper role. Emotion provides information. It should not control decisions. Another common misunderstanding is that critical thinking slows you down. In reality, it speeds up good decisions. It prevents costly mistakes. People who think critically make fewer emotional errors. They recover faster when they are wrong. They learn more from experience. Critical thinking is also about structure. Clear thinking follows a process. It gathers information. It examines evidence. It tests conclusions. Unclear thinking jumps to results. It avoids questions. It defends assumptions. Think of your mind like a lens. A dirty lens distorts what you see. Critical thinking cleans the lens. You see situations more accurately. You understand people more clearly. You make choices with confidence. This skill is useful in every area of life. In relationships, it helps prevent misunderstandings. In work, it improves problem solving. In daily life, it reduces stress. It allows you to respond instead of react. Critical thinking is not about doubting everything. It is about examining what matters. You do not question for the sake of doubt. You question for the sake of truth. A critical thinker is open-minded. They listen carefully. They are willing to change their mind when evidence changes. This is a strength, not a flaw. Many people fear being wrong. Critical thinkers see being wrong as information. It shows where growth is possible. Now consider how this applies to decisions. Every decision is based on a belief about risk, a belief about reward, a belief about consequences. If the belief is flawed, the decision will be flawed. Critical thinking helps you inspect beliefs before acting on them. It asks simple questions. What do I know? What am I assuming? What am I missing? These questions lead to better outcomes. Critical thinking also protects you from manipulation. Advertising, media, and persuasion are everywhere. They rely on emotion and urgency. Critical thinking restores balance. It helps you recognize pressure tactics. It helps you slow down and evaluate claims. It helps you choose freely. This book will teach you how to develop this skill step by step. You will learn how thinking goes wrong. You will learn how to correct it. You will learn how to apply it in real situations. Critical thinking is not a talent you are born with. It is a discipline you build. Like any skill, it improves with practice. Small changes make a big difference over time. As you move forward, remember this. Clear thinking leads to clear living. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. When you think better, you live better. And that journey begins with understanding what critical thinking really is. Chapter 2. Why most people think poorly. Most people do not choose to think poorly. It happens quietly. It happens naturally. Poor thinking is not a sign of low intelligence. It is usually the result of habit, and habits form without awareness. From an early age, people learn what to think. They are rarely taught how to think. This creates a serious gap. When thinking is not examined, it becomes automatic. Automatic thinking feels fast and comfortable, but it is often inaccurate. The human brain is designed to save energy. It looks for shortcuts. It prefers familiar patterns over careful analysis. This is useful for survival. It is dangerous for judgment. Imagine walking into a room and seeing someone frown. Your mind reacts instantly. You assume they are upset with you. That assumption feels real. No evidence is checked. No alternatives are considered. This is poor thinking in action. The brain fills in missing information. It does so quickly, and it does so confidently. Another reason people think poorly is emotional attachment. Emotions are powerful. They influence attention. They influence memory. When emotions are strong, thinking becomes narrow. People focus on what supports how they feel. They ignore what challenges it. This is why arguments often fail. Each person is defending emotion, not truth. Fear is one of the strongest disruptors of clear thinking. Fear rushes decisions. It demands certainty where none exists. Anger does the same. It narrows focus. It justifies harsh conclusions. Poor thinking also grows from comfort. Questioning beliefs takes effort. It can be uncomfortable. It can challenge identity. Many people would rather feel certain than be correct, so they cling to familiar ideas, even when evidence disagrees. This is not stubbornness alone. It is psychological safety. Another major cause is information overload. People are surrounded by constant input, news, messages, opinions. The mind becomes overwhelmed. Instead of analyzing, it reacts. Speed replaces accuracy. In this state, shallow thinking feels necessary. There is no pause. There is no reflection. Social influence also plays a role. Humans are social beings. They seek belonging. They seek approval. When a group believes something, questioning it feels risky. So people adopt shared beliefs without evaluation. Agreement feels safer than truth. This is why false ideas spread quickly. They move through emotion and repetition, not through evidence. Poor thinking is also reinforced by success. When a decision works once, it feels validated. People repeat the same thinking. Even if the success was accidental, over time flawed thinking becomes invisible. It feels normal. It feels justified. Education alone does not solve this problem. Many educated people still think poorly. They may know more facts, but facts do not equal thinking. Critical thinking requires structure. Without structure, knowledge becomes noise. Another hidden cause is time pressure. Modern life rewards speed. Quick responses are praised. Slow thought is often mistaken for weakness. But good thinking takes time. It requires space. It requires patience. When time is scarce, thinking quality drops. There is also the problem of overconfidence. The mind often mistakes familiarity for understanding. Just because something feels clear does not mean it is correct. Confidence can grow without accuracy. This leads to strong opinions built on weak foundations. Poor thinking thrives in certainty. Clear thinking thrives in curiosity. One more factor is lack of feedback. Many decisions have delayed consequences. Mistakes are not immediately visible, so thinking errors go uncorrected. Without reflection, the same patterns repeat. Now consider this important point. Poor thinking is not permanent. It is learned, which means it can be unlearned. Awareness is the turning point. When you notice how your mind jumps to conclusions, change becomes possible. When you notice emotional influence, balance returns. When you slow down, clarity appears. This chapter is not meant to judge. It is meant to reveal. Everyone thinks poorly at times. The difference lies in awareness. Critical thinkers do not eliminate mistakes. They reduce them. They correct faster. As you continue, you will learn how to replace automatic reactions with deliberate thought. You will learn how to question without fear. You will learn how to think with intention. Poor thinking is common. Clear thinking is a skill, and skills can be mastered. Chapter 3. The Power of Asking Better Questions. Every breakthrough in thinking begins with a question, not an answer. A question. Most people rush toward answers. They want certainty. They want closure. Critical thinkers do the opposite. They slow down. They ask better questions. The quality of your thinking is shaped by the quality of your questions. Weak questions lead to weak conclusions. Strong questions lead to clarity. Many people ask questions without realizing it, but these questions are often hidden. They live beneath awareness. For example, when something goes wrong, the mind asks, "Why does this always happen to me?" This question feels natural, but it is poorly designed. It assumes failure is permanent and personal. A better question changes everything. What can I learn from this? Notice the difference. One question traps you, the other moves you forward. Asking better questions is not about sounding intelligent. It is about directing attention wisely. Your mind follows the question you ask. It searches for answers that fit the question, so the question matters deeply. Many thinking errors come from unexamined questions. Imagine someone says, "Should I quit or should I stay?" This question assumes only two options. It ignores alternatives. It limits thinking before it begins. A critical thinker notices this. They ask, what other options exist? That single shift expands possibility. Better questions create space. They slow reactive thinking. They invite reflection. This is especially important in emotional moments. When emotions rise, questions disappear. Reactions take over. Judgment narrows. In these moments, one calm question can restore balance. What am I feeling right now? Why? This does not remove emotion. It brings awareness. Awareness weakens impulse. It strengthens choice. Good questions also protect you from assumptions. Assumptions feel like facts, but they are often guesses. A critical thinker asks, what evidence supports this? What evidence challenges it? These questions do not accuse. They clarify. Consider a real-world example. A manager believes an employee lacks motivation. This belief shapes behavior. Tension grows. A better question changes the outcome. What obstacles might this person be facing? Now the focus shifts. Understanding replaces judgment. Better questions improve relationships. Instead of asking, why are you like this? A critical thinker asks, what is driving this behavior? One question builds walls, the other builds bridges. Questions also shape learning. Many people ask, is this right or wrong? This limits growth. It frames learning as a test. A better question is, how does this work? This invites curiosity. It encourages exploration. Critical thinking thrives on curiosity. Curiosity keeps the mind open. Certainty closes it. This does not mean doubting everything. It means examining thoughtfully. Another powerful category is reflective questions. These questions turn thinking inward. They examine habits and patterns. For example, how did I reach this conclusion? What influenced my decision? These questions reveal hidden forces. Emotion, bias, pressure. Once revealed, these forces lose power. Better questions also improve decision-making. Before a major choice, most people ask, what do I want? This matters, but it is incomplete. Critical thinkers add deeper questions. What are the consequences? What am I trading off? What might I regret later? These questions do not complicate life. They simplify it. They prevent avoidable mistakes. There is also the question of timing. Asking the right question at the wrong time can fail. Critical thinkers sense when to pause, when to listen, when to speak. Sometimes the best question is silence. It allows information to surface. It invites honesty. Now consider how questions influence others. When you ask questions instead of giving orders, resistance drops. People feel respected. Dialogue opens. Questions invite participation. Statements invite defense. This is why skilled leaders ask more than they tell. The goal of asking better questions is not control, it is clarity. You are not interrogating life, you are exploring it. To develop this skill, practice is required. Begin by noticing your inner questions. Pay attention to the language you use with yourself. Then gently improve it. Replace blaming questions with learning questions. Replace narrow questions with open ones. Replace rushed questions with calm ones. Small changes matter. Over time, your thinking becomes clearer. Your reactions slow down. Your confidence grows. Because you are no longer trapped by the first thought. You are guided by better questions. Critical thinking does not begin with knowing more. It begins with asking better. And when you learn to ask the right questions, better answers follow naturally. Chapter 4. Separating Facts from Opinions. One of the most important thinking skills is knowing what is true. Yet many people confuse truth with belief. A fact is something that can be verified. An opinion is a personal interpretation or judgment. They are not the same. The problem begins when opinions are spoken with confidence. Confidence can sound like truth, but sound is not evidence. Critical thinking teaches you to pause and ask, is this a fact or is this an opinion? This single question changes how you see the world. Consider a simple statement. This product is the best on the market. It sounds factual, but it is an opinion. The word best depends on standards, price, quality, use. Without clear criteria, the claim has no solid ground. Facts stand on evidence. They can be checked. They remain true, even when opinions change. For example, water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius under normal conditions. This is a fact. It does not depend on preference or belief. Opinions, on the other hand, reflect perspective. They are shaped by experience. They are influenced by emotion. Opinions are not useless. They provide insight, but they should not be mistaken for facts. Many thinking errors happen when opinions are treated as truth. Media, advertising, and social discussion blur this line often. Statements are framed emotionally. Facts are mixed with interpretation. Critical thinkers learn to separate the two. They listen carefully. They notice language. Words like always, never, best, and worst are signals. They often point to opinion, not evidence. Another clue is emotional tone. Strong emotion often accompanies opinion. Facts do not need emotion to stand. This does not mean emotional statements are false. It means they require examination. Now consider how assumptions play a role. Assumptions fill gaps in information. They feel logical, but they are guesses. For example, she did not reply because she is upset. This feels reasonable, but it is not a fact. A critical thinker asks, "What do I actually know?" This question returns you to evidence. Separating facts from opinions also protects relationships. Many conflicts grow from misunderstanding. One person shares an opinion, the other hears it as a fact. This creates tension. For example, "You never listen to me." This is an opinion shaped by frustration. It feels factual to the speaker, but it is not absolute truth. A critical thinker responds with curiosity. When did you feel unheard? This invites clarity instead of defense. Now think about decisions. Good decisions are built on facts. Poor decisions rely on unchecked opinions. This is especially true in important areas. Money, health, career. Critical thinkers gather facts before acting. They verify sources. They compare evidence. They also accept uncertainty. Not all facts are available. Not all questions have clear answers. Separating fact from opinion does not guarantee certainty. It reduces error. It helps you know what you know and what you do not. This awareness is powerful. Another challenge comes from repetition. When opinions are repeated often, they feel true. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort creates belief. Critical thinking resists this effect. It asks, "Just because I hear this often, does that make it true?" Repetition is not evidence. Agreement is not proof. Critical thinkers value accuracy over popularity. This skill also improves self-awareness. Your own thoughts include facts and opinions. They often blend together. For example, "I am bad at this." This feels like a fact, but it is an opinion. A critical thinker reframes it. "I struggled this time." The difference is subtle. The impact is large. One statement limits growth. The other allows it. Separating facts from opinions is not about being cold or detached. It is about being clear. Clarity leads to better communication, better decisions, better understanding. As you practice this skill, your mind becomes calmer. You react less. You observe more. You begin to see statements for what they are: evidence, belief, emotion. This clarity is a cornerstone of critical thinking. Without it, confusion grows. With it, understanding deepens. Chapter 5. Understanding Cognitive Bias. Your mind is not neutral. It never has been. Cognitive bias is the tendency of the mind to lean in certain directions. These leanings shape how you see the world. They influence what you notice and what you ignore. Bias does not mean bad intent. It means human. The brain evolved to make fast decisions. Speed once meant survival. Accuracy came second. Because of this, the mind uses shortcuts. These shortcuts are called cognitive bias. They help you decide quickly, but they often distort reality. Most people believe bias only affects others. This belief itself is a bias. It creates blind spots. Critical thinkers accept a difficult truth. No one is immune. Understanding bias begins with awareness. One common bias is confirmation bias. This is the tendency to seek information that agrees with what you already believe. You notice supporting evidence. You overlook contradictions. Imagine you believe a certain habit leads to success. You notice every example that confirms it. You ignore examples that challenge it. Your belief grows stronger, not because it is true, but because it feels true. Another powerful bias is the availability bias. The mind gives more weight to information that is recent or vivid. Events that are dramatic feel more common. Quiet data is ignored. For example, hearing about a rare accident may increase fear. Statistics show it is unlikely, but emotion overrides numbers. The mind remembers stories better than facts. Bias feeds on this tendency. There is also the anchoring bias. The first piece of information you receive sets a reference point. Later judgments adjust around it, even when it is irrelevant. A price tag influences perceived value. A first impression shapes lasting opinion. Once anchored, the mind resists change. Another bias that affects daily thinking is the status quo bias. People prefer things to stay the same. Change feels risky. Familiarity feels safe. Even when improvement is possible, resistance appears. This keeps people stuck in poor habits, not because they are best, but because they are known. Bias also shows up in how we judge others. The fundamental attribution error causes people to blame character instead of situation. If someone makes a mistake, they are labeled careless. If we make the same mistake, we blame circumstances. This protects self-image. It distorts fairness. Emotional bias is another influence. When you like someone, their flaws seem smaller. When you dislike someone, their strengths fade. Emotion colors perception. Cognitive bias also affects confidence. Overconfidence bias leads people to overestimate their ability. They believe they know more than they do. They stop learning too soon. This bias blocks growth. Bias thrives in certainty. It weakens under curiosity. Critical thinking does not remove bias. It manages it. The goal is not to eliminate shortcuts. That would be impossible. The goal is to notice them. Awareness creates distance. When you recognize bias, you regain choice. You pause. You question. You ask simple questions. What evidence supports this? What evidence challenges it? What might I be overlooking? These questions interrupt bias. Bias is strongest when emotion is high and time is short. Slow thinking reduces its power. This is why critical thinkers slow down important decisions. They seek multiple viewpoints. They welcome disagreement. Disagreement is not a threat. It is a test. Bias also explains why intelligent people can disagree strongly. They may have different experiences, different emotional investments. Understanding this builds patience. You stop assuming others are irrational. You see how perspective shapes belief. This skill improves communication. It improves leadership. It improves judgment. Bias is not a flaw to be ashamed of. It is a condition to be managed. The more you understand it, the less control it has over you. As you continue, you will learn how to apply logical thinking. Logic provides structure. It balances bias with reason. Understanding cognitive bias is a major step forward. It moves you from reaction to reflection, from assumption to awareness. And awareness is where clear thinking begins. Chapter 6. Logical Thinking Made Simple. Logic sounds complicated to many people. In reality, it is very simple. Logical thinking is the ability to connect ideas clearly. It is how you move from information to conclusion. It is how you decide what makes sense. You already use logic every day. You just may not notice it. For example, if the sky is dark and clouds are heavy, you expect rain. That is logical thinking. Logic is not about being cold or robotic. It is about being consistent. When thinking is logical, ideas fit together. When thinking is illogical, gaps appear. Most poor decisions are not emotional alone, they are illogical. Logical thinking asks one core question: does this conclusion follow from the information? If it does, the thinking is sound. If it does not, something is missing. Let us break this down. Logical thinking starts with premises. Premises are pieces of information you accept as true. They form the base. From those premises, a conclusion is drawn. For example, all humans need sleep. You are human, so you need sleep. This is simple logic. The conclusion fits the premises. Problems arise when premises are weak. Consider this: I failed once, so I will always fail. The conclusion does not logically follow. One event does not guarantee a pattern. Logical thinking notices this gap. It asks, is one example enough? Often it is not. Another common error is skipping steps. People jump from feeling to conclusion. They do not check the connection. For example, I feel nervous, so this must be a bad decision. This is not logical. Nervousness can come from many causes. Logical thinking separates feeling from evidence. Feelings are signals. They are not proof. Logical thinking also values clarity. Vague ideas lead to weak reasoning. Clear definitions strengthen thought. When someone says this plan will never work, logic asks, what does work mean? Under what conditions? Clarifying terms removes confusion. Logical thinking does not argue loudly. It questions quietly. It looks for consistency. If someone holds two conflicting beliefs, logic notices. If a claim contradicts itself, logic pauses. For example, I value honesty, but lying is fine when it helps me. These ideas clash. Logical thinking highlights the conflict. It invites resolution. Another key part of logic is cause and effect. Many people confuse correlation with cause. If two things happen together, they assume one caused the other. This is not always true. For example, sales increased when a new logo was launched. The logo may not be the reason. Other factors could exist: timing, marketing, market changes. Logical thinking asks, what else could explain this? This prevents false conclusions. Logic also helps you think in degrees. Many people think in extremes: always or never, success or failure. Logic recognizes complexity. Most situations exist between extremes. Recognizing this improves judgment. Logical thinking does not demand perfect information. It works with what is available. It asks, given what I know, what is the most reasonable conclusion? This is practical logic. In daily life, this skill saves time and stress. Instead of overthinking, you reason clearly. Instead of reacting, you evaluate. Logical thinking improves communication as well. When you explain your reasoning step by step, others understand you better. Disagreements become clearer. Misunderstandings decrease. This is especially valuable in problem solving. Rather than blaming, logical thinkers analyze. What happened? Why did it happen? What can be improved? These questions move forward. Logical thinking is not about being right all the time. It is about being willing to be corrected. If new information appears, logic adjusts. It does not cling to outdated conclusions. This flexibility is strength. To practice logical thinking, slow down slightly. Ask yourself simple questions. What am I assuming? Does this conclusion match the evidence? What alternative explanations exist? These questions sharpen thought. Over time, logic becomes natural. You notice flaws faster. You reason more confidently. Logical thinking does not remove uncertainty. It helps you navigate it. When combined with awareness and curiosity, logic becomes a powerful tool. It keeps your thinking grounded. It keeps your decisions clear. In the next chapter, you will learn how to recognize faulty reasoning. You will see how logic breaks down and how to spot errors before they lead you astray. Chapter 7. Spotting faulty reasoning. Not all arguments are equal. Some sound convincing but fall apart under inspection. Faulty reasoning happens when conclusions do not follow from the evidence. It often hides behind confidence and emotion. This makes it difficult to notice. Critical thinkers learn to spot these errors early. They listen beyond the surface. They examine how ideas connect. One common form of faulty reasoning is overgeneralization. This occurs when a broad conclusion is drawn from limited experience. For example, I tried once and failed, so it will never work. One event is treated as a rule. Logic breaks here. A critical thinker pauses. They ask, is one example enough? Often it is not. Another frequent error is false cause. This happens when one event is assumed to cause another without proof. If two things happen close together, the mind links them. For example, after I changed my routine, things went wrong, so the change must be the cause. This conclusion feels logical, but it ignores other factors. Faulty reasoning also appears in either-or thinking. This is the belief that only two options exist, either success or failure, either right or wrong. Life is rarely that simple. Critical thinkers look for a middle ground. They search for additional possibilities. Another error is appealing to emotion instead of evidence. Fear, anger, and excitement are powerful. They can override reasoning. For example, this must be true because it feels right. Feelings matter, but they are not proof. Faulty reasoning also includes attacking the person instead of the idea. Instead of addressing an argument, attention shifts to character. This avoids the real issue. For example, that idea is wrong because I do not trust the person saying it. Truth does not depend on who speaks it. Another subtle error is circular reasoning. The conclusion is assumed in the premise. Nothing new is proven. For example, this rule is fair because it is just. Fair and just mean the same thing here. The reasoning goes in a circle. Faulty reasoning often feels complete. It feels closed. It discourages questions. Clear reasoning invites examination. Another common trap is relying on authority alone. Experts matter. Experience matters. But authority without evidence is not enough. Critical thinkers ask, what is the reasoning behind this claim? They respect expertise without surrendering judgment. Faulty reasoning also appears when people ignore counter-evidence. They focus on information that supports their view. They dismiss anything that challenges it. This protects belief. It weakens truth. Critical thinkers do the opposite. They seek opposing views. They test their own ideas. This is uncomfortable. It is also powerful. Another sign of faulty reasoning is vague language. Words are used without clear meaning. Claims cannot be tested. For example, this approach is better. Better how? Better for whom? Clarity reveals strength or weakness. Faulty reasoning also grows in rushed decisions. Speed reduces reflection. Pressure reduces patience. Mistakes increase when thinking is hurried. This is why slowing down is a critical skill. Spotting faulty reasoning does not require confrontation. It begins with awareness. You notice gaps. You notice assumptions. You notice leaps. You do not need to argue. You need to understand. When reasoning is faulty, outcomes suffer. Poor decisions are made. Conflicts grow. Learning stops. When reasoning is clear, progress follows. To practice this skill, listen carefully to conclusions, then trace them backward. Ask simple questions. What is the evidence? Does the conclusion fit? What might be missing? These questions sharpen your thinking. Over time, faulty reasoning becomes easier to detect. You see through confident claims. You remain grounded in logic. This skill protects you. It keeps you from being misled. It strengthens judgment. In the next chapter, you will learn how to think clearly under pressure. You will discover how emotion and urgency affect reasoning, and how to stay balanced when it matters most. Chapter 8. Thinking clearly under pressure. Pressure changes how the mind works. It speeds everything up. Thoughts narrow. Choices feel urgent. Under pressure, the brain shifts into survival mode. It focuses on speed, not accuracy. This response is natural, but what helps in danger often hurts in decision-making. Clear thinking becomes harder when stakes feel high. Deadlines approach. Emotions rise. Consequences feel heavy. This is when mistakes are most likely. Thinking clearly under pressure is not about staying calm all the time. It is about staying aware. Pressure does not remove your ability to think. It competes with it. When pressure appears, attention shrinks. You focus on the loudest signal. You ignore quieter information. For example, imagine being asked a difficult question in a meeting. Your heart rate increases. Your mind rushes to respond. You speak quickly. Later, you realize you missed a better answer. Pressure pushed speed over clarity. Critical thinkers learn to recognize this moment. They notice the physical signs: tight shoulders, shallow breath, racing thoughts. These signals are not enemies. They are warnings. Awareness creates a choice. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause briefly. Even 1 second helps. That pause interrupts the pressure loop. Thinking clearly under pressure begins with slowing the body. A slow breath signals safety. The mind follows. This is not about meditation. It is about regulation. Once the body settles slightly, thinking space opens. Now logic can return. Another challenge under pressure is tunnel vision. The mind locks onto one outcome. It ignores alternatives. For example, I must succeed right now. This belief increases stress. It reduces flexibility. A critical thinker reframes the situation. What is the best next step? This question shifts focus from outcome to action. Pressure also amplifies emotion. Fear predicts disaster. Anger seeks blame. Anxiety demands certainty. These emotions speak loudly. They feel convincing. Clear thinking listens without obeying. It asks, what is emotion telling me? What is it not telling me? Emotion provides data. It does not provide conclusions. Another pressure trap is urgency bias. When something feels urgent, it feels important. But urgency does not always equal importance. Many rushed decisions create long-term problems. Critical thinkers learn to ask, is this truly urgent, or does it just feel urgent? This question restores perspective. Pressure also affects communication. Under stress, people speak less clearly. They assume understanding. They skip explanations. Misunderstandings increase. Thinking clearly includes speaking clearly. Simple words help. Short sentences help. Calm tone helps. This steadies both you and others. Real-world pressure often involves uncertainty. Incomplete information creates discomfort. The mind wants closure. This leads to guessing. Guessing feels like progress, but it often leads astray. Clear thinkers accept uncertainty. They say, I do not know yet. This is not weakness. It is accuracy. They gather what information they can. They decide with awareness of limits. Pressure also tempts people to rely on habit. When stressed, the mind falls back on familiar patterns. These patterns may not fit the situation. Critical thinkers pause to check. Is this habit helpful here? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is not. Knowing the difference matters. Thinking clearly under pressure also involves perspective. In intense moments, problems feel larger than they are. The mind magnifies consequences. A useful question helps restore balance. Will this matter tomorrow? Will it matter in a year? This question does not dismiss the issue. It places it in context. Context reduces panic. Another powerful tool is prioritization. Under pressure, everything feels important, but not everything is. Clear thinkers identify the core issue. They focus on what moves the situation forward. This prevents overload. Thinking clearly under pressure is a practiced skill. It improves with repetition. Each time you pause instead of panic, you strengthen control. Each time you choose clarity over speed, confidence grows. You will not always succeed. That is expected. The goal is progress, not perfection. Over time, pressure loses its grip. You respond with intention. You remain present. This skill is valuable everywhere, at work, in relationships, in unexpected moments. Clear thinking under pressure protects your judgment. It protects your values. It protects your future decisions. Chapter 9. How emotions influence thought. Every thought carries emotion. Even when you believe you are being objective, emotion and thinking are not separate systems. They work together. They influence each other constantly. Many people believe clear thinking means removing emotion. That is not possible, and it is not necessary. The real skill is understanding how emotion shapes thought. Emotions are signals. They provide information about needs, values, and threats. But signals are not instructions. Problems begin when emotions take control of conclusions. For example, fear says something might be wrong. Fear does not say what is wrong or what to do. Thinking fills in the rest. If thinking is rushed, fear becomes certainty. If thinking is calm, fear becomes guidance. Consider a common situation. You receive critical feedback. Your chest tightens. Your mind reacts. Thoughts appear quickly. I failed. They do not respect me. These thoughts feel true because emotion is strong, but feeling true does not mean being true. Critical thinking creates distance. You notice the emotion first. I feel threatened. Then you examine the thought. What evidence supports this? What evidence does not? This pause prevents emotional conclusions. Emotions influence attention. When you are angry, you notice insults. When you are anxious, you notice risks. When you are happy, you notice possibilities. Emotion acts like a filter. This filter is useful. It highlights what matters, but it also hides what does not match the emotion. Clear thinkers learn to ask, what might I be missing because of how I feel? This question widens perception. Another emotional influence is mood. Mood is a background emotion. It shapes thinking quietly. On a good day, problems feel manageable. On a bad day, the same problems feel overwhelming. The situation did not change. The lens did. Critical thinkers account for this. They delay major decisions when emotions run high. They revisit conclusions later. This simple habit prevents regret. Emotions also affect memory. Events connected to strong emotion are remembered more vividly. They feel more important. This can distort judgment. For example, one painful failure can outweigh many quiet successes. The mind focuses on what hurt most. Critical thinking restores balance. It looks at patterns, not moments. Another powerful influence is emotional labeling. When you name an emotion, its intensity drops. This is because awareness engages reasoning. Saying, I feel frustrated, creates space. The emotion becomes an object of thought, not a command. This technique is simple. It is effective. Emotions also drive motivation. Without emotion, action stalls. Emotion gives energy. The goal is direction, not suppression. Critical thinkers channel emotion. They ask, how can this feeling guide useful action? Anger can point to boundaries. Fear can highlight risk. Sadness can signal loss. Used wisely, emotions support thinking. Used blindly, they replace it. Another emotional trap is personalization. People often assume events are about them. This intensifies emotion. For example, a short reply feels like rejection. A neutral comment feels like criticism. Critical thinking challenges this. What other explanations exist? Often emotion narrows interpretation. Expanding interpretation calms reaction. Emotions also influence moral judgment. When emotion is high, judgment becomes harsh. When emotion is low, judgment softens. This explains why people change opinions over time. Critical thinkers recognize this fluctuation. They avoid making absolute judgments in emotional moments. Instead, they seek consistency. Another key point is emotional momentum. Once emotion starts, it builds. Thoughts feed emotion. Emotion feeds thoughts. This loop can escalate quickly. Breaking the loop requires interruption. A pause, a breath, a question. What am I reacting to right now? This question slows the cycle. Thinking clearly with emotion does not mean detachment. It means partnership. Emotion provides data. Thinking provides direction. When aligned, decisions improve. Many people fear emotions because they feel uncontrollable. But emotions respond to attention. When ignored, they grow louder. When acknowledged, they settle. Critical thinking includes emotional literacy. You learn to recognize patterns. You learn triggers. You learn recovery. This builds resilience. Resilient thinkers are not emotionless. They are emotionally aware. They allow emotion to inform. They do not allow it to dominate. As you practice this skill, your inner dialogue changes. You stop saying, "I am angry," and begin saying, "I notice anger." That shift is powerful. It restores choice. Emotion will always influence thought. That is part of being human. Mastery comes from awareness, not resistance. When you understand how emotion shapes thinking, you gain balance, you gain clarity, you gain control. Chapter 10. Evaluating information in the modern world. You live in an age of constant information. News arrives every minute. Opinions travel instantly. This creates a new challenge, not finding information, but deciding what to trust. In the past, information moved slowly. Sources were limited. Verification was easier. Today, speed replaces reflection. Emotion replaces evidence. Volume replaces value. Critical thinking becomes essential. Evaluating information in the modern world begins with one truth. Not everything presented as fact is true. Information comes wrapped in language, tone, images, emotion. These elements influence belief before thinking begins. The first skill is slowing down. When information feels urgent, pause. Urgency is often used to bypass judgment. Ask yourself a simple question. Why does this need an immediate reaction? Speed favors emotion. Clarity favors patience. Another key skill is source awareness. Every piece of information has an origin. Someone created it. Someone benefits from it. Critical thinkers ask, who is sharing this? Why? This does not mean distrust everything. It means understanding context. Reliable sources show evidence. They explain reasoning. They accept correction. Unreliable sources rely on certainty and emotion. They discourage questions. They oversimplify. Language provides important clues. Absolute words demand attention. Always, never, everyone. Reality is rarely absolute. Strong claims require strong evidence. Another challenge is emotional framing. Information is often designed to trigger feeling, fear, anger, excitement. When emotion rises, thinking narrows. Critical thinkers notice their reaction first. They ask, how does this make me feel? This question is not about agreement. It is about awareness. Emotion signals influence. Influence does not equal truth. Another issue is repetition. Repeated information feels familiar. Familiarity feels true. This is a powerful illusion. Critical thinking breaks this cycle. It asks, is this repeated because it is true, or because it spreads easily? Popularity is not proof. Visual content also affects judgment. Images feel real. They create strong impressions, but images can be edited. Context can be removed. Critical thinkers ask, what is missing from this picture? Now consider numbers and data. Statistics sound objective, but numbers can mislead. Data can be selected carefully, presented selectively, interpreted incorrectly. Critical thinkers ask, what is the sample? What is being compared? What is not shown? Understanding limits matters. Another challenge is confirmation bias. People seek information that supports what they already believe. Algorithms encourage this. Over time, perspectives narrow, beliefs harden. Critical thinkers deliberately seek opposing views, not to argue. To understand this expands perspective. It does not require agreement. It requires curiosity. Evaluating information also means recognizing opinion. Opinions are valuable. They reflect experience, but they should be labeled clearly. Critical thinkers ask, is this a fact or an interpretation? Mixing the two creates confusion. Another modern challenge is misinformation. False information spreads quickly, often faster than corrections. This happens because false stories are simple and emotional. Truth is often complex. Critical thinking accepts complexity. It resists simple answers to complex problems. Another helpful practice is triangulation. This means checking multiple sources, looking for agreement across differences. When independent sources align, confidence increases. When they conflict, caution is needed. Critical thinkers are comfortable with uncertainty. They do not rush to conclusions. They wait for clarity. This patience protects judgment. Evaluating information also includes self-awareness. Ask yourself, what do I want to be true? Desire influences belief. Hope shapes interpretation. Awareness reduces distortion. Another powerful question is practical. What would change if this were true? This question tests relevance. Some information is interesting but not useful. Knowing the difference saves mental energy. Information overload creates fatigue. When overloaded, thinking quality drops. Critical thinkers limit input. They choose quality over quantity. They create space for reflection. Reflection turns information into understanding. Understanding leads to wisdom. In the modern world, thinking clearly is an active choice. It requires effort. It requires discipline. But the reward is freedom. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from confusion. Freedom to decide with clarity. As you develop this skill, your confidence grows. Not because you know everything, but because you know how to evaluate. Chapter 11. Critical thinking in everyday life. Critical thinking is not reserved for big decisions. It lives in small moments. Everyday life is filled with choices. What to believe, what to say, what to ignore. These choices shape outcomes more than dramatic events. Most daily decisions happen on autopilot. Habits take control. Reactions feel automatic. Critical thinking brings awareness into these moments. It helps you pause before speaking. It helps you question before agreeing. It helps you choose instead of drift. Consider a simple example. You wake up tired. The thought appears, today is going to be bad. This thought feels harmless, but it shapes behavior. You move slower. You expect problems. You notice frustration more easily. Critical thinking interrupts this pattern. You ask, is this a fact or a feeling? The day has not happened yet. The conclusion is premature. This small shift changes tone. Energy improves. Mood lifts. Critical thinking also affects how you interpret others. Someone speaks briefly to you. You assume they are upset. This assumption feels natural, but it is not verified. A critical thinker asks, what else could explain this? Maybe they are distracted. Maybe they are tired. This prevents unnecessary tension. Many conflicts disappear when assumptions are questioned. Everyday thinking also includes self-talk. The way you speak to yourself matters. Internal dialogue guides action. For example, I am not good at this. This statement feels factual, but it is an opinion. A critical thinker reframes it. I am still learning this. The meaning changes. Motivation returns. Critical thinking helps you catch these patterns. It does not silence self-talk. It improves it. Daily decisions about time also benefit. People often say they have no time. This feels true, but time is rarely the issue. Priority is. Critical thinking asks, what am I choosing instead? This question restores ownership. You stop blaming time. You start choosing intentionally. Critical thinking also shapes how you consume information. Every day you encounter claims, advice, opinions. Without thinking, you absorb them. Critical thinkers evaluate quietly. They ask, does this apply to me? What evidence supports this? They do not reject everything. They do not accept everything. They choose thoughtfully. This skill is especially useful in spending decisions. Impulse purchases feel good in the moment. Regret often follows. Critical thinking adds a pause. Do I need this now? Will I value this later? Often the answer changes with reflection. In conversations, critical thinking improves listening. Instead of preparing a reply, you focus on understanding. Instead of assuming intent, you ask for clarity. This builds stronger connections. People feel heard. Misunderstandings reduce. Critical thinking also helps with problem solving. When something goes wrong, the mind looks for blame. This feels satisfying. It rarely helps. A critical thinker asks, what happened? What can be improved? This moves forward. Even routines benefit from this skill. Habits often continue without question. Some help, some do not. Critical thinking invites review. Is this still useful? Is there a better way? Small improvements compound over time. Another everyday area is emotion management. Emotions appear throughout the day. Frustration, joy, disappointment. Critical thinking does not suppress emotion. It adds perspective. You feel irritation. You pause. You ask, what is this really about? Often the cause is deeper than the trigger. This awareness prevents overreaction. Critical thinking also affects expectations. Unrealistic expectations create disappointment. Critical thinkers examine assumptions. They ask, is this expectation fair? Is it realistic? Adjusting expectations improves satisfaction. Everyday life rarely demands perfect thinking. It benefits from better thinking. Small pauses, simple questions, gentle reflection. These habits create clarity. Critical thinking in daily life is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply improves outcomes. Over time you notice changes. Less regret, less confusion, more confidence. You feel more grounded, more intentional. This is not because life becomes easy. It is because your thinking becomes clearer. Critical thinking becomes part of who you are, not a technique, a way of living. Chapter 12. Critical thinking at work and business. Work and business are built on decisions. Every meeting, every plan, every action. The quality of these decisions shapes results. Many workplace problems are not caused by lack of effort. They are caused by unclear thinking. Assumptions go unchallenged. Habits replace analysis. Urgency overrides reflection. Critical thinking brings clarity into this environment. It helps you see problems accurately. It helps you choose solutions wisely. It helps you communicate with purpose. In work settings, pressure is common. Deadlines exist. Expectations rise. Under pressure, people react. They follow routine. They avoid questioning. Critical thinkers do the opposite. They ask before acting. For example, when a project fails, blame appears quickly. People search for a person to fault. Critical thinking redirects attention. What caused the issue? Where did the process break? This shift improves systems instead of damaging trust. In business, decisions often involve incomplete information. Waiting for certainty is not realistic. Critical thinkers accept uncertainty. They make the best choice with available data. They remain open to adjustment. This flexibility prevents stubborn mistakes. Meetings provide many examples of poor thinking. Ideas are dismissed too quickly. The loudest voice dominates. Agreement is mistaken for quality. Critical thinkers listen carefully. They separate ideas from people. They evaluate reasoning, not rank. They ask clarifying questions. They seek evidence. They invite alternative views. This improves outcomes. Another workplace challenge is groupthink. When teams value harmony over truth, mistakes grow. People stop questioning. Risk increases. Critical thinkers create psychological safety. They make questioning acceptable. They model curiosity. This leads to better decisions. Critical thinking also improves leadership. Leaders influence how others think, not just what they do. A leader who asks thoughtful questions encourages reflection. A leader who reacts emotionally creates fear. Critical thinking in leadership builds trust. Employees feel respected. Communication improves. Problems surface early. Business decisions often involve trade-offs. Time versus quality, cost versus value, speed versus accuracy. Critical thinkers examine these trade-offs clearly. They avoid false choices. They look for balance. They ask, what are we gaining? What are we giving up? This clarity reduces regret. Critical thinking also helps manage feedback. Feedback can feel personal. Emotion can cloud judgment. Critical thinkers separate message from delivery. They look for useful information. They ignore unnecessary emotion. This turns feedback into growth. In problem solving, critical thinking provides structure. Instead of jumping to solutions, you define the problem. Instead of guessing causes, you investigate. This saves time. It prevents repeated mistakes. Critical thinking also improves negotiation. Understanding the other side matters. Assumptions create resistance. Critical thinkers ask, what does the other party value? This leads to better outcomes for everyone. Business environments reward results, but sustainable results require clear thinking. Short-term wins achieved through poor reasoning often create long-term damage. Critical thinkers consider impact, not just outcome. They ask, what happens next? This forward thinking builds stability. Critical thinking also supports ethical decisions. Pressure can tempt shortcuts. Clear thinking protects values. Critical thinkers ask, is this right? Is this sustainable? These questions matter. In daily work, critical thinking shows up quietly. In emails written with clarity. In decisions explained with logic. In disagreements handled with respect. Over time, this builds reputation. People trust clear thinkers. They rely on them. Critical thinking becomes a professional advantage. It does not require a title. It requires intention. Anyone can develop it. Anyone can apply it. As you practice these skills, work becomes less reactive. Business becomes more strategic. You move from chaos to clarity. Chapter 13. Teaching yourself to think better. Clear thinking does not happen by accident. It is developed. It is practiced. No one is born a strong critical thinker. Thinking skills are built over time, through attention and repetition. Teaching yourself to think better begins with responsibility. You accept that your thoughts shape your life. You stop blaming circumstances alone. You focus on what you can control. This shift is powerful. The first habit is awareness. Most thoughts pass unnoticed. They appear and disappear. They guide action silently. Critical thinkers learn to notice them. You do not need to analyze every thought. You only need to notice patterns. Ask yourself simple questions. What am I assuming? Why do I believe this? These questions slow thinking gently. Another key habit is reflection. Reflection turns experience into learning. Without it, mistakes repeat. At the end of the day, pause briefly. Ask what worked today, what did not. This is not self-criticism, it is self-observation. Small reflections create insight. Another important habit is reading thoughtfully. Information alone does not improve thinking. Engagement does. When you read or listen, ask questions. Do I agree? Why or why not? This active approach strengthens judgment. Critical thinkers also practice perspective shifting. They try to see situations from different angles, not to agree, to understand. This reduces bias. It improves empathy. Ask, how might someone else see this? Another powerful habit is delaying judgment. Instant conclusions feel satisfying. They are often wrong. Critical thinkers allow uncertainty. They say, I need more information. This patience improves accuracy. Teaching yourself to think better also involves improving language. Words shape thought. Vague language creates vague thinking. Replace general statements with specific ones. Replace emotional labels with descriptions. For example, this is terrible becomes, this did not meet expectations. Clarity improves control. Another habit is learning from mistakes. Most people avoid mistakes emotionally. Critical thinkers examine them logically. They ask, what led to this? What can be changed? This turns failure into feedback. Teaching yourself to think better also means managing input. Too much information weakens thinking. Selectivity strengthens it. Choose sources carefully. Limit unnecessary noise. This creates mental space. Critical thinkers also challenge themselves. They seek disagreement. They explore opposing views. This is uncomfortable. It is also effective. Growth lives outside comfort. Another important habit is consistency. Thinking skills improve with repetition. Occasional effort is not enough. Short daily practice matters more than long sessions. Even one thoughtful pause a day makes a difference. Teaching yourself to think better is not about perfection. You will still make errors. The goal is progress. Each time you notice a bias, you improve. Each time you pause before reacting, you grow. Critical thinking becomes part of your identity. You begin to trust your judgment, not because it is flawless, but because it is examined. This builds confidence. Over time, thinking better becomes natural. You do not force it. You live it. This journey is personal. It is ongoing, and it is worth the effort. Chapter 14. Becoming a lifelong critical thinker. Critical thinking is not a finish line. It is a way of living. Many skills are learned, used, and forgotten. Critical thinking is different. It grows as long as you practice it. Becoming a lifelong critical thinker means committing to awareness, not once, but continually. Life changes. Information changes. People change. Your thinking must adapt. A lifelong critical thinker does not chase certainty. They value clarity over comfort. They stay open to learning. This begins with humility. You accept that no matter how much you know, there is always more to understand. This mindset protects you from arrogance. It keeps curiosity alive. Curiosity is the engine of lifelong thinking. When curiosity fades, thinking hardens. Beliefs become fixed. Growth slows. Critical thinkers remain curious. They ask questions even when answers feel familiar. Another key trait is reflection. Lifelong thinkers regularly review their thinking. They ask, what did I learn from this experience? How did my thinking help or hurt? This reflection does not require hours. It requires honesty. Honesty strengthens judgment. Becoming a lifelong critical thinker also means embracing change. New information can challenge old beliefs. This can feel uncomfortable. Many people resist this moment. They defend the past. Critical thinkers do something different. They update. Changing your mind is not failure. It is accuracy. This flexibility keeps thinking aligned with reality. Another important element is patience. Clear thinking often takes time. Quick answers feel appealing. They are often shallow. Lifelong critical thinkers are willing to wait. They gather information. They allow understanding to develop. This patience leads to depth. Lifelong thinkers also recognize emotional cycles. They know emotions will rise and fall. They do not make permanent decisions in temporary states. This self-awareness prevents regret. They return to important decisions with fresh perspective. Another powerful habit is seeking feedback. Others see what you cannot. Their perspectives reveal blind spots. Lifelong critical thinkers invite feedback. They listen without defensiveness. They evaluate what is useful. They discard what is not. This strengthens judgment. Teaching others is another path to mastery. When you explain ideas, your thinking becomes clearer. Gaps appear. Assumptions surface. Sharing thinking is not about authority. It is about refinement. Lifelong thinkers also protect their attention. Attention is limited. Where it goes, thinking follows. They choose input carefully. They avoid constant distraction. This creates space for depth. Depth leads to insight. Another defining trait is responsibility. The lifelong critical thinkers take ownership of decisions. They do not outsource thinking. They do not follow blindly. They consider advice. They examine evidence. They choose deliberately. This creates confidence. Not the confidence of certainty, the confidence of process. They trust their method. The lifelong critical thinking also includes ethical awareness. The lifelong critical thinkers ask, is this right? Is this fair? Is this sustainable? These questions shape character. Over time, critical thinking becomes identity. You do not switch it on. You live it. You respond thoughtfully. You speak clearly. You listen deeply. Mistakes still happen. That is human. The difference is recovery. Lifelong thinkers learn quickly. They adjust. They move forward wiser. This is the true reward. Not being right all the time, but becoming better over time. As you finish this book, remember this. Critical thinking is not about control. It is about freedom. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from confusion. Freedom to choose with clarity. The world will always be complex. Information will always be noisy. Your thinking does not have to be. Be patient with yourself. Practice often, stay curious, and carry this skill forward. Because becoming a lifelong critical thinker is not just about how you think, it is about how you live. Conclusion. Critical thinking is not a technique you use once. It is a habit you carry with you. Throughout this book you have explored how thinking works. You have seen how assumptions form. You have learned how emotion, bias, and pressure shape judgment. Most importantly, you have learned that better thinking is possible. Clear thinking does not require perfection. It requires awareness. Each pause you take matters. Each question you ask matters. Each assumption you challenge matters. Over time, these small moments change how you live. You become less reactive. You become more intentional. You begin to trust your decisions. Critical thinking does not make life simple. It makes life clearer. It helps you navigate uncertainty. It helps you choose wisely when answers are not obvious. It helps you stay grounded when opinions are loud. This skill will serve you everywhere, in conversations, in work, in relationships, in moments that matter. You will still face confusion. You will still make mistakes. That is part of being human. The difference is how you respond. With critical thinking, mistakes become lessons. Challenges become information. Uncertainty becomes manageable. Remember this as you move forward. You do not need to think faster. You need to think better. Better thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. Carry these principles with you. Practice them daily. Refine them over time. Critical thinking mastery is not an achievement. It is a commitment to clarity, a commitment to truth, a commitment to growth. And that commitment begins again each time you choose to think with intention.